each year, roughly 100,000 veterans are discharged from the armed services, and something like 60% of those have quantifiable STEM skills. And to put that in perspective, all of American universities graduate roughly 45,000 engineers every year. So the population of STEM-oriented veterans is incredibly important in terms of thinking about American competitiveness, the role of STEM skills in the workforce, and particularly with regard to diversity and inclusion and the role of women in the STEM workforce, because there are a substantial number of women in the armed forces. That number is growing, and the transition points between getting those folks into and retained in careers in the STEM fields is an incredibly important topic for keeping our country strong and keeping our industries flowing. So with that, I will get started on this conversation with Rebecca Lewis, Managing Project Director at Education Development Center. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, James, and thank you to all of you who are joining this discussion today. It's, as James said, a very important one. EDC does work to improve education, health, and economic opportunity across the United States and the world. We were founded as an education incubator in 1958 in response to the Sputnik launch, and EDC is now a global leader in designing, implementing, and evaluating education, health, and economic programs. STEM education and workforce development are particularly important to us, and we have a deep commitment to broadening participation in STEM. As a result, we have led hundreds of initiatives focused on closing education, STEM education, and opportunity gaps. So I wanted to join today as part of my role as a principal investigator on the National Science Foundation funded project, Women Veterans in STEM, and I'm going to put up a slide briefly on this. And I apologize, I always don't start the slide. I can't start the slideshow at the same time I'm speaking. So this project was funded to hold a convening of stakeholders in 2021 to identify and seek recommendations to address the unique barriers and opportunities for women veterans, particularly those from populations underrepresented in STEM, to engaging in the STEM workforce. And a bit of background for today's briefing, I want to share some data around women veterans. As many of you may know already, women are the fastest growing population in the US military. And yet, even as this number of women in the military skyrockets, our country continues to fall behind in meeting their needs, particularly after their service is done. In fact, military experts told Congress just in October that many of our country's more than 2 million women veterans are struggling to transition back to civilian life. These struggles are compounded by mental health issues, including the after effects of military sexual trauma, isolation after their service, and struggles to find services and navigate the complex systems that exist to support our veterans. However, women veterans bring a number of strengths to the civilian workforce, particularly the STEM workforce, as James was sharing. Some of their military occupations prepare them well for STEM careers. However, in addition to the skills that they can bring to that workforce, supporting women veterans' entry and retention in the STEM workforce will also help veterans themselves. In fact, women veterans in STEM professions make 54% more than women veterans who are in non-STEM occupations, and they even earn 13% more than non-veteran women in STEM. So it's a significant increase in their earning potential to enter STEM fields. In addition, stronger pathways to STEM careers for women veterans will strengthen the financial stability for their family. This is particularly important because more than half of our women veterans are single parents, and many of the others are married to service members, which may mean their spouse is deployed on a frequent basis or whose career requires them to have frequent moves for their family. So having that financial stability is very key. We also know that women veterans have the expertise and skills to enter and are interested in pursuing STEM careers. In fact, women veterans are nearly twice as likely to be a STEM occupation than non-veteran women. And even more importantly, the top 3 STEM occupations for women veterans are computer and mathematical occupations, computer science and information technology, and engineering. This is incredibly notable because engineering and computer science are 2 fields where women are most underrepresented, making up only 15% and 26% of the total workforce. So supporting women veterans' entry into STEM professions will not only increase gender diversity, but will also increase the racial and ethnic diversity in fields where most jobs are held by men who identify as white or Asian. That's because more than 60% of enlisted women are from minority populations, as are about 40% of women officers. So why does this matter? Well, we all know that diversity is incredibly important as a driving factor in innovation in STEM. A 2018 study found that companies with diverse management teams have 19% higher revenues due to the innovation in their company. And a 2019 McKinsey study found that companies in top quartile for diversity were 25% more likely to have above average profitability than those in the bottom quartile. So STEM is not only critical to our nation's economy and prosperity, but so too is the diversity of STEM. As we mentioned at the beginning of this briefing, the percentage of US veterans who are women is growing incredibly. In fact, the number is projected to increase and double between 2010 and 2040. Meaning that current gaps that exist will only continue to widen if we don't take steps to strengthen the system and close those gaps. While much needs to be done to ensure that those who have served our country can leverage their experience and expertise into economic opportunities, there are lots of things that are happening around the country that are very promising, services that exist. One of the challenges is making sure that all service members, particularly women service members who are less likely to make use of VA and other government services, have equitable access to that support pre and post transition. So I wanted to encourage you all to review the report from our convening, and I'll put a link into the chat after this. And thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Rebecca. So next we're going to go to Kirby Hodges, Strategic Partnerships and Achievement Conferences Manager for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Northrop Grumman. Kirby, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, James. I'm very excited to be here with everyone today. And, you know, I've been with Northrop Grumman for over 17 years, and 11 of those years have been working in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you know, our veteran population is very important to us, and it's one of our unique focus areas that we spend a lot of time on, and just to continue to improve the benefits and services that we offer. Because, you know, we know here at Northrop that the importance of veterans choosing us as their employer when they decide to lay down their uniform after serving this country. And they definitely offer us a very unique perspective on the work that we're doing here based at Northrop, by their very unique experiences that they've encountered in their military service. So we have a specialized team of recruiters that, you know, in hiring veterans and specifically women. And, you know, we've noticed that historically, and a little bit on Rebecca's information that she shared, is that there's a unique challenge in hiring veterans because, you know, a lot of our job positions typically require a higher education degree. And you know, 70% of the military have like a high school education. And, you know, one of the things that we've been looking at over time is reevaluating those job positions and redefining what we need, you know, specifically, like, do we really need an education versus skills? And so we've really been looking more at skill-based hiring versus educational hiring as it relates to our veterans. And, you know, as far as women, you know, there's been a stereotype out there that we've heard, you know, this is from our women veterans, that, you know, they don't necessarily display strong leadership characteristics. And that's, you know, for women overall, right? And so, you know, one of the things that we've done here at you know, and this was all based on their male counterparts too, but, you know, one of the things that, you know, we know that is definitely not the case. And so we've started an initiative here called GRIT, which, you know, basically embodies that definition of what GRIT is, which is, you know, courage and resolve, strength of character. And so this initiative, you know, their mission statement is, you know, and it's really built for women, and it's to establish an internal network where they will provide support, mentorship, empowerment, and camaraderie, and it's a safe place for women veterans to identify within the Northrop Grumman community. So it was really founded on those beliefs that, just to kind of help women as they're transitioning from the military into private sector. And so, like I say, they've got a mentoring program that they've developed where, someone who's first come into Northrop Grumman will be mentored by a female executive who is typically a veteran as well. And that will help assist them in building their skills as well as those soft skills so they can help further their career development. So, but we know that isn't enough, right? We know that there's a lot more that we have to do. And over the last, several years, we've been building, a repertoire, if you will, of services for our veterans and women. And, we have, especially from transitioning from military life into this type of private sector. And, a company like Northrop Grumman is a big company. We're like 100,000 employees worldwide. And so it can be a bit daunting. And especially when, someone is used to that structured military career, and a company like Northrop, you're kind of, I wouldn't say on your own, but you are, right? You have to develop your own career and that kind of thing. So, like I say, we've developed a specific veteran resources that not only from an ERG, so we have an ERG called Veritas, which stands for Veterans, Employees, and Reservists Inspired to Act and Serve. And they are specifically set up, to kind of help veterans there. We have a buddy program. So all new veterans that come into the company get buddied up with another employee that is a veteran that walks them through that I'm trying to think of the word I want to say, but that, going through the process of going from military into private sector. We also have a program called Operation Impact, and we've had it for several years. It is and what that stands for is injured military pursuing assisted career transition. And that it's an award-winning diversity program that we've developed. And what it is basically focused on is assisting severely wounded service members as they transition from military to private sector. And so, in addition to providing support to an injured service member, if they're not able to work, then we're going to offer a career support to that individual's immediate family member who will act as the primary wage earner. So it's kind of a specialized program to help an injured veteran either find a job themselves and working around their injury, and or maybe a family member who is helping to support them. We will help them find a specific job within Northrop. And if it's not at Northrop, we have a what we call a network of champions, which are other companies that are part of this group. And if we can't find them a job at Northrop, then we'll help find them a job somewhere within that network of champions. So, like I say, we've got a variety of these types of programs that we offer our employees, webinars, and they're all specific to the veteran needs. And so, we also have military spouse, support, and just a variety. And we also started the department, partnered with the Department of Defense's Skill Bridge program, which we brought into the company to help with that transition. So, it's like I say, a lot of it is removing a lot of the barriers that we've had, and I will definitely not say that everything is perfect, and we've got this great retention, but we do have, our retention has improved over time because of all the benefits and services we offer. And Rebecca, to the last point I wanted to make is when you mentioned about some of the mental health issues and things that a lot of our vets, especially women, encounter. Northrop Grumman has something called NG Cares, which is a program that provides support, a variety of support to our employees, and specifically we have veteran support that we offer. So, that is something that we always make sure when we recently had the withdrawal from Afghanistan, that really affected our veteran population. And so we had some special meetings where we brought that employee assistance program in to help support those veterans. So that's just a little bit of what we've done so far.
Thank you, Kirby. So next up, we have John Decato, Vice President of Campus and Military Admissions at Universal Technical Institute. John?
Hey, thanks, James, and appreciate it. As you mentioned, my name is John Decato. I'm the VP of Military Admissions at UTI. I'm also a disabled Marine combat veteran, and it's really awesome to be able to speak to everybody today. At UTI, we have over 2,200 veterans on any given day, and have a team that focuses directly with the veteran population. At UTI, we teach adults in the transportation and motorsports industries. Career fields like auto, diesel, collision repair, motorcycle, marine, CNC machining, welding, in addition to NASCAR, which are all big STEM careers. We also have a lot of services that focus directly to support veterans. We have VA centers at every campus that we have, where there are rooms that are only available to veterans, that have refreshments, that have computers, that have like tables, TVs, where they could go there and lounge and be able to talk to people, hang out with people that have the same background as them. We also have VSOs, the veteran support organizations, that come to our campuses on a monthly basis. And they offer anything from health screenings to shots to helping folks out with any type of mental health issues, as well as helping them put together disability packages as they're transitioning out of the military. We also have training for our staff. And what I mean by that, at UTI, probably 8 to 10% of our staff has ever put on a uniform. About 16% of our population is veteran students, a lot of them coming back with multiple combat tours. And, you know, me being a Marine combat veteran, understand PTSD, the signs, and our staff didn't. So probably about a decade ago, I reached out to the VA and had them come in and do training for everyone who touches students, meaning our financial aid people, student support people, our instructors, et cetera, to where when they saw the signs of somebody struggling, they were better trained and more effectively be able to support those folks to be able to help them out. And, you know, without question, the industries that we service has a heavy preference, not only for veterans, but female veterans. At our campuses, similar to the military, we have hiring fairs where we have, you know, hundreds of companies across the country that look for our folks. The first thing they ask for, hey, have they put on a uniform? Because people that have put on a uniform bring different things to the table, like discipline, do small things like show up for work and stuff like that. So, but I want to talk to you guys today about kind of what are the trends that we see with veterans in transition to STEM careers, and specifically with women in regards to post-service. According to the DOL, there are almost 2 million women veterans in the US. Women veterans continue to make positive strides in education, career, and entrepreneurship, with many turning to science, technology, engineering, and math fields for career choices. According to the census, women make up approximately 27% of STEM workers. And of those, women veterans pursue STEM-related occupations at double the rate of their non-veteran counterparts. So, you know, to me, what that means is a lot of women that join the military come out of the military with transferable skills, and they'll get the education or walk right into a great program like Northrop Grumman, using the skills that they acquire from the military to be able to walk out to the workforce. These women veterans are making wise choices. Last year, 18 of the 20 highest paying careers were in STEM. The field is expected to grow by 8% between 2019 and 2029. These careers can be pursued by using the GI Bill and other benefits. As a veteran, we're well suited to STEM-related careers. The combinations of the disciplines taught in the military services combined with the intense work ethic of the men and women in the military make a great fit for employers on the outside. Additionally, employers that we work with, you know, as I referenced, on a routine basis, which are all STEM careers, are clamoring to recruit female veterans in all sorts of roles, whether it be roles turning a wrench, could be leadership roles, service advisors, et cetera. And, I wrote down a lot of the points that the other young ladies wrote, and I'm trying to, weed those out so I'm not, redundant in it. And, the other part is, how's the GI Bill working to help folks that are transitioning out of the military? And it makes sense to go with where the GI Bill started. The GI Bill is an education benefit for the latest generation of service members and veterans. It traces back to its history of World War II, when the Service Members Readjustment Act was enacted to provide education and training, home loan guarantee, and other benefits for veterans. The most recent GI Bill was signed into law by President George W. Bush in 2008 and went into effect the following year. In 2017, certain parts of the GI Bill were updated under the Harry W. Colery Veterans Educational Assistance Act, also known as the Forever GI Bill. This is an amazing opportunity for veterans, as they may be able to walk into a career immediately separating from the military, as it not only helps them out with tuition, but helps them out with the cost of housing. That's a support mechanism for veterans to help them out with graduation persistence and be able to support their family. I know a lot of folks that have gotten out of the military and 10, 15 years later, maybe that career field has ended. This change in the career field, to be able to let them remove the statute of limitations of when you could take it, helps out folks, because they may need help long after. They use what they learned in the military to walk into a job. That plant may have shut down or job may have been outsourced. And this helps them, 5, 10, 25 years down the road. The other scope of the GI Bill that's extremely impressive is they're allowed to use it in a more flexible way. Not everybody is a traditional education person. And the GI Bill has become flexible in ways to allow people for entrepreneurship training, OJT training, license and vocational training. And these types of options allow them to align more with their personal skill sets and preferences. As a Marine Corps recruiter, I put a ton of young men and women in the military that had the ability to go to a 4-year school but lacked the desire. And the vocational school is an amazing avenue for veterans, as the average veteran who's getting out of the military is 24 to 26, married, 1 to 2 kids. The GI Bill will pay for any state school, but they can't afford to go to a state school in some cases because they can't afford to go that long without insurance and full pay. And the vocational route and STEM route that we offer, our programs being 9 to 22 months, allows them to be able to get the training. Our classes are shorter, same time each day, shorter periods of time, where we also help them out get jobs to be able to subsidize their housing allowance. That way their family's impacted in the least way possible. So the STEM careers, due to the military having so many careers that are technical in nature, really align like, really peanut butter and jelly. And it's an amazing match and a great opportunity for the young women that are leaving the military, because they're in a lot of technical fields and bring a lot of things to the table. And I'll close with this: as a Marine Corps recruiter, I love putting in female Marines. They were generally more committed, and just like they walked in with a chip on their shoulder, like, hey, I'm about to run this. I got something to prove. And when you have people that are motivated like that, the sky's the limit. And it's just really, James, I really appreciate the privilege to serve on this esteemed panel. And thank you again on behalf of UTI, and I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, John. So our final speaker today is Angela Dickson, who is Learning Manager at TechnipFMC. Angela, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Now, those are hard acts to follow, but I'll bring up the rear as the woman veteran on the call. I served 20 years in the Air Force, and I wouldn't trade that time for anything. So my part of this is to talk about post-service transition and maybe what can be done. So you have to kind of take it back to middle school, high school. Are we convincing our young ladies to do those STEM careers? Are we helping them? Are we giving them the tools that they need? I mean, research and theorists note that girls or young ladies are better at the language arts, the soft skills, whereas the boys are good at math and science. But the tables are turned, and our women need to understand that they can go in these fields. I was fortunate enough to be able to get into a career right now in an energy industry, learn professional. And we have quite women on our team. We have about 20,000 people at TechnipFMC. We're a global company, and we do look for women. We look for vets, which is why I joined the company, because they had a very good veterans network. We're working on recruitment. One of our company goals is to recruit more women. And the veteran population, our company goes back to World War II when they were assisting with the building of tanks. And so TechnipFMC has a longstanding history with veterans. And there was a time when we used to go to military bases to recruit. And of course, you know, times have changed, but those are some of the things that are coming back. So the things that I see as a woman getting out of the military, and I got out in 2003 in San Antonio. San Antonio is a military town, but when you move to towns that aren't necessarily military friendly, the transition is a bit harder. But just like with Ms. Hodges and what John was saying, there's opportunities out there, but the sad thing that's in our veteran community is most things are word of mouth. And so if there could be a way to amplify the things that are happening. And I know commercial airspace and written media is expensive, but we've got to figure out a way to get out there and let women veterans know that, hey, these are opportunities for you, to not be discouraged. When we talk about transition efforts at our military bases, back in 2003, we had a TAP program, which I'm understanding has been changed and recreated. But I believe we need to have those everywhere we can put them to be more robust in saying, hey, take this test and let's see what your skills are. Because Ms. Hodges made a good point of, you don't have to necessarily have a degree, either engineering or mathematics or science, but if you have the skill set to work in something of that nature, then, you know, taking a test to see if your aptitude is there. You know, we all take the ASVAB, and I sucked at the mechanical part, and the electronics, we're not even going to talk about that. But the general, I did really well in, and admin, I did really well in. So teaching was my thing. But when we look at our young women, a lot of times we think of the softer skills. We think, well, that's what I want to do. But no, you can do those other technical skills as well. And with John talking about UTI, that is an amazing. Out, boots to the ground, talk about, here's what we can do for you. But we've got to spread our wealth. So what can be done is to amplify these TAP programs around the set curriculum where everybody's pretty much teaching the same things, but may have different agencies for those local areas come in and talk about what opportunities they can provide for veterans. Because we're very shy, we're very bashful. We don't like to hear thank you for your service, because we didn't do it for the thanks. We did it because we felt a sense of duty. In the Air Force, the core values of integrity, service before self, and excellence. Today, I've almost been retired for 20 years. I still live by those core values, and especially service before self. So with that, I want to send a shout out to Camp Shield for Houston, Texas. We are a women veterans organization, one of only 2 in the city. And my city has a very large population of women, but a lot of things that we find out about is through word of mouth, because it's not a big military town here in Houston. And so, you know, other towns where you don't have the military bases, figure out how you can spread the word. You know, talk to the different companies, the organizations, the schools, the high schools, junior ROTC in college. That's where it all starts. And I didn't want to take up more time than I'm allowed. So you tell me, John, if I'm okay or no, or James, I apologize.
So I appreciate that very much, Angela. Let's get to some conversation about this. So I'm going to try and break this up in a couple of different topics. One of the things I heard as sort of a common theme was this challenge around was around translating the skills and the training that veterans have gotten in the service into the right match for jobs, right? That seems to me like a common theme of, what are some of the barriers for, say, somebody who's trained as a diesel mechanic in the military to then become a diesel mechanic in the private sector, right? Or are there other areas? Are we doing well in some areas and not in others? Like, Kirby, can I go to you first? Because I have to assume you're hiring for lots of different skill sets inside the company. Where do you see better alignment with military skills and civilian jobs, and where are there more challenges?
Right. And thank you for that. And as a matter of fact, it was just interestingly, I received a resume 2 days ago from one of my colleagues at a conference, at one of our conference organizers, and he had spoken with this a female who was in the process of coming out of the military. And I got her resume. She had some great skills. She doesn't have a lot of education, but she had an SSBI clearance, which that's also one of the things that we struggle with, right? And that's why we love having our vets, because a lot of our vets do already have those clearance levels, which is so important to the work that we do. But when I handed her off to a recruiter and I said, please, please, please take a look at her, and tell us what we can do. And one of the things that, exactly to Angela's point, is that she had a particular location that she wanted to be in, which we don't necessarily have work in, but we were going to see what we could do. But what I was kind of informed was that she didn't have a lot of technical skills. She had a lot of other types of skills, but we were going to try to see what we could do after talking with her to fit her. So to your point, that's one of the things that we are trying to do more of, is not just look at the resume, right? Because the resumes don't always tell you the full story. You got to talk to the person and listen to what those specific skills are, because they may not translate as well as like what you were saying. So we kind of take a look at, okay, well, what are they really doing? So explain the job, and then we could then try to fit it into some of the jobs that we have. So so it's more about listening versus, in a recruiting world, the systems that are out there are just looking for buzzwords, right? It's just looking for the buzzwords. And so we are trying to do this more, to have a more concerted effort of looking past the resume and the words in the resume, and really making a phone call. And so just by seeing that person has got that clearance level, then that's going to pique our interest, because we want to at least see what we can do. So to your point, a lot of those barriers are going to be helping with that resume, because that resume may not necessarily convey what we really need. And so so the skills have got to be built out more than maybe what's on that paper.
Well, it just seems to me like, part of this could be in the same way that, folks in Congress have been saying, hey, you have to require every high school kid to fill out the federal financial aid form, right? Like we should hold them down and make them fill out the FAFSA, right? So that they have access to federal aid, and they didn't know they were supposed to do it until they tried to borrow something and, got confronted with it. It seems to me like, maybe we should be doing a more detailed assessment of veteran skills, social and emotional and personality, and other things that would help inform this, and also maybe with the resume writing and the applications, that's part of it too. But doing a more assessment in that period where they're in transition, seems to me something that's valid. John, can you speak to this? I mean, how many people, if you were going to guess, how many people in the military could do a job, but they don't have the paperwork to do a job in the private sector versus not having the skills?
That's difficult. You could take like an airframes person that works on a Harrier in the Marine Corps or a Huey. They've got the technical skills, but due to like insurance purposes, et cetera, they may not be able to work for Boeing or Bell or whatever the case may be until they get the A&P license. Or take a Navy engine mechanic that they work on Cummins, but they lack the certifications. And if you work for a Cummins dealership and you don't have the Cummins certifications, the Cummins corporate doesn't pay the Cummins dealership to do that work. So I think the military gives them a strong foundation. And when applied with the civilian training and the certification, makes for a win-win.
Well, and Angela or Rebecca, anything else to be said around this question of how do we have a better, the sort of alignment between, what skills veterans have, what we know about those skills, and then how we make it easier for them to get into a lot of these, certificated or things that, a lot of things that are done in the military require a certification to do it in the private sector, not a degree, a certification or a credential of some kind. What else can we say about that?
So that's a very good point. There's a lot of programs out there that are speaking to veterans about certifications. And so I think somehow getting that word out to these military bases that, hey, here's a certification here if you're interested in that. Then, when you transition, you're able to utilize it. And then for the companies, I like what Kirby was talking about for Northrop Grumman. If you have a skill, let's see if we can find a fit. Because you all know, a lot of military folk go in at 18, they have no skills, but the military trains you up the way the military needs you to do that job, and then you get the skills. And so if companies are willing to take that chance of training, of providing sessions for classes, any type of things that will help amplify that employee skills, veterans are very loyal. They will stick around. As long as you take care of them, they're going to take care of you.
Yeah, I would. I actually have a recent instance where I'm working with a company and they're moving into North Carolina. And they've actually been working very closely with the bases in North Carolina to say, how can we make sure we're aligning our job postings for the jobs we're going to have available in this location with the service members and their skills. And so they're actually building their job descriptions to make that a smoother process. The other piece that I would mention that I think is really important, and I think this is a sort of goes into a policy area where particularly land grant universities do not recognize service and knowledge that is developed through the certifications that service members may get in service. And that's really problematic. I think there really needs to be, where we have the opportunity with public universities, pathways created to go from service into pursuing those degrees, because you have taken lots of that knowledge. I had one woman we were working with who was a nuclear submarine technician, and she had to go through training all the time and coursework constantly. And then when she left the military, none of that was transferable into any credits at a university. So that's an area where we could definitely do much better as well.
And I just want to piggyback off something that Angela said too, is that one of the things, and of course with COVID we haven't been able to do this, but we hope to kind of once everything gets over with, we'll go back to it. But one of the things that we used to do was something we called boot camps, right? We would use some of that terminology where we would go into some of the bases, and like I know we went to Fort Hood a couple times, and we would spend an all day having vets come in, and we would do the resume writing, and we would train them on different types of skills and things like that they needed in order as they were preparing to leave service. So that's where companies too can kind of help to that point, so like what Angela mentioned, where we can kind of come in and help the military prepare for that transition. And that was something we really loved doing, was those little boot camps.
John?
Yeah, so is anybody here familiar with career skills programs? So for those that aren't, about 5 or 6 years ago, the Department of Defense realized they were using more money for unemployment than they were people and bullets. And they had to flip the script, in other words. And what they did was invited industry to come to the bases to train people the last 6 months while they're in, to where they could walk out with marketable skills and certifications. I'm about to do a ribbon cutting ceremony on the 3rd Career Skills Program, where UTI partnered with BMW North America. We've got a career skills program on Camp Pendleton, about to do the ribbon cutting at Fort Bragg. But I'm going to spend some time today talking about the Penske Premier Truck Group. We put a Freightliner program on Fort Bliss, where you have a lot of 91 Bravos, which is the Army term for diesel mechanics, or 3521s in the Marine Corps. We put a lot of folks in that program, and it's a 12-week program where they walk away with certifications with Freightliner. And when they come to the table, they know a lot about the engines, but they lack a little bit of depth on the electronics. And take Freightliner, for instance, about 50% of their repairs can be done remotely through a laptop connecting to the computer. And so there's not a lot of those with 5 tons or 7 tons in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, or Air Force. So I think there's a technology gap in, the way a 5-ton works compared to maybe the way a Freightliner truck works on the street. So I think that we've done a great job with bringing those programs to the bases that are no cost to the service member, where they walk out with actual certifications and walk into a job. And I will tell you that we've had more than a handful of female veterans in these programs, and they've actually absolutely destroyed it and done an amazing job. So, James, I just wanted to break down as a way that the military is recognizing the skill gap, and there's several companies stepping up to the plate to be able to help fill that skill gap and also help them with their personnel needs. I mean, honestly, in today's work environment, talent acquisition is probably majority of companies' biggest problem. They can't get enough skilled people to do the job. So this is a way for the companies that are on this phone to be able to connect with veterans in a more meaningful level.
So let me turn in a little bit different direction and talk a little bit about sort of imagery and symbolism and role models for a second. So one of the things we've learned over the last 10 years or so is the importance of people seeing themselves and people like them in career paths. Is there anything we might do to take, and I'm going to respond to a question that was asked in the chat around this by Vanessa Johnson, which was, how do I start a STEM program as a vet to reach students? Let me turn that in a slightly different way and say, is there a role for our women veterans to be back in front of kids at an early age to say, hey, you know what? A girl can go do what I did, right? You can do this. Here's what I'm doing, or other veterans to have that same role. Is anybody trying that? And is that something that's worthwhile of thinking about in the policy world? Angela, would you like to go? Sure.
Yes, that's a great question. The organization that does help our high schools is Travis Mannion Foundation. It's a group of vets, and as a matter of fact, I'm speaking at a high school tomorrow to the junior ROTC cadets. They have a program called Character Matters. And so you join up with Travis Mannion, they train you on their curriculum, and they get you ready to go out into these schools and talk to these young people. That helps. Now, if you want to start your own nonprofit, there's another great way. But just look at the things that are already out there for our youth, which is Travis Mannion.
Others on this?
I would just say one of the challenge, I think it's really important that we do make strides to change the idea of who is a service member. I will say that, most times when I see images of the military or veterans, it's men and men in uniform, very rarely women. We were doing some image searches in our work as we wanted to make sure we had a good representation of women veterans and what they look like. And the number of images that come up that sort of sexualize women veterans or fetishize them was really odd. And it was sort of like, that's the only role that women veterans are put into, nursing roles or those kinds of images. And so I think, and that really has a real effect. I remember talking to one of our participants in our convening, and she said whenever she talks about the military and being a military family, everybody always assumes it's her husband who is the service member. In fact, she was a Marine. And so I think the more that we can encourage women who are working with young people to talk about their service and to identify themselves as veterans, that's critical to changing people's perceptions overall of who can do those jobs. So I think that's really important.
Anybody else want to jump in on this?
UTI has an Ignite program that I just sent everybody a link to that helps out women in high schools that are interested in STEM skilled careers. And so if anybody wants any information offline about that, I can put my contact information there. We'd love to come out to whatever school you're at and talk to the whole staff and school about our programs. These programs are designed to help people that are interested in STEM careers in high schools get their feet wet in high schools to be able to see if this is something they actually want to do. And we're throwing a lot of scholarship money to be able to support people to be able to do that as well.
So let me turn back to sort of the federal government and Congress and the Department of Defense for a second. So if you could do one thing to change federal policy around the GI Bill, or how military organization, how you would access military facilities or vet, or service members, or security clearances, anything in this sort of equation around veterans, what would be one change that you would throw out there that you would think would be really valuable?
I think they should focus more on outcomes instead of a tax code. At UTI, we have over 80% graduation rate and over 60% or over 4 out of 5 of our graduates are actually employed in what they went to school for. So they get focused around if a school is for profit or not for profit, and they should be focused on who's actually helping people. So I think the standard should be the same whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit school. The other thing that UTI brings to the table is in the Marine Corps, we have a saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. Technology will change. When I grew up, 8-tracks were in cars. Today, I can hit a button on my phone and whatever on my phone plays through the speakers. Just imagine what the technology will be 20 years from now. At UTI, if you graduate, not only do we help you out with job placement assistance your entire life, we give you free technical training assistance for any class you pass as long as you graduate. So, UTI, people are people. We treat them as people. They're not a number. I graduated at a state school. The only thing they ever send me is, can you donate? And they've never helped me find a job. They've never offered me free continuing education in what I graduated for. So, for that reason, focus on what actually helps people, not what gets you voted to office.
Other suggestions?
I would say that based on our convening and the folks that we brought together, a really important message that came out was the need to have some kind of comprehensive support system and technical assistance center for specifically focused on women veterans that is not within any particular agency. Again, there are some significant hurdles around engaging women veterans in the VA, and they don't necessarily know about all of the resources available to them. And so one of the things that was in the call to action that we released this past summer was around having the government actually fund a resource center, much like they do for other initiatives, youth.org, for example, that would really help this particular population and be focused on them, because many of the programs that exist in the federal federal government for veterans were created for male veterans. And, while there are efforts to retroactively make them work for women, that doesn't necessarily make it a very welcoming environment for women, particularly those who have had military sexual trauma or some other reasons why they're not necessarily comfortable engaging with male veterans long term. So I really do hope that policymakers will look at this as they're looking at other things like the pink tax on military uniforms and other particular things that affect women veterans and women service members.
Kirby?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. I'm not sure I really have a whole lot of ideas just from the employer's perspective for policy changes, but I think just kind of a little bit about what's been mentioned so far. A lot of it is just going to be about making sure that all the services that are available, especially for women veterans, continue to be made available, and that there aren't any budget cuts or things like that, because those are really important to keep women in the focus, and something that from an employer perspective that we want to be able to reach out and to find them specific jobs. So I think just some connections would be really very helpful in how we connect employers with transitioning military. So like some type of a bridge would be perfect.
And Angela, I'd like to give you the last word. If you could change one policy aspect to benefit women veterans, what would it be?
I think if there was a mandatory assessment prior to getting out of the military to determine if your skills in the military are translatable to the civilian force, and if not, give them an idea of what they could do with it, what avenues they take, or what they would need to do next. Because, when we get out, you get your orders, your DD 214, and that's it. There's no connection after that. Now, if you retire, a lot of times you do enough research to know this is what. Sure. If say you serve 2 years, 4 years, whatever, you just walk out of the uniform one day and into civilian clothes the next. So maybe something that's mandatory on our military bases to give the veterans, women veterans in particular, a sense of what could be next.
Love that idea. I love that idea, Angela. From an employer perspective, I think that would just be perfect to be able to have something that they understand where they're what's next, and then you tie those two together with employers. Yep.
Well, and I think we just wrote a bill. So with that, let me thank all of our panelists and everybody who joined and everybody who served in our armed forces. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at our next briefing next year. Thank you.